Chill lo-fi waves from Chill Hop Music album Lo-Fi Hip Hop Radio Girl Chill Lo-Fi to Study To. It's from 2021. And well, today's subject is dual builds and making dual builds, designing dual builds. And when you have a character that has different compelling reasons to have a specific build for different situations, how do you design that? How do you make those designs? How do you make it in game? And where I'm kind of starting with this, you can see I've got two builds up. I've got a controller that's ice control radiation emission, and I've got a defender that's radiation emission sonic attack. Now, if I look at the defender for a brief moment and mouse over to totals, you can see that this particular defender build is soft cap 2 smashing lethal energy fire cold defenses. And if you account for the debuff that is inherent uh, in radiation infection, and we'll lock this off and check those. Radiation infection does currently minus 43.7% to hit. It's because I got these 2-hit debuff endurance, 2-hit debuff endurance. And the result of that is that once a target is hit with radiation infection, even arc villain class targets are generally going to be missing. The player will be effectively soft capped to negative, psionic, melee, ranged AoE. Basically, the character will have effective soft caps to everything, even potentially against targets that are resisting debuffs. And then it's like I can look at this build and I can already kind of see some of the potential things that like I'm not happy with. And to explain why, I can go over and point at the controller, and we'll bring the controller build up so you can see the stats on the controller. I'm only soft capped to ranged defense outright with radiation infection. I've got resist in here, and I really should change those to 2-hit debuffs. Uh, and we'll call this a fixed build. And 2-hit debuff endurance. And that puts me at greater amount of 2-hit debuff against common enemies. If we go to effects, lock it off, we're at minus 34% to hit. That, in order to reach 45%, I only need 11 defense. Effectively, then, against any enemies that can launch or any enemies that are not resisting the 2-hit debuff, I would be soft cap to smashing lethal energy, negative, psionic, fire, cold, melee, ranged AoE. I'd be soft cap to everything. Might not be so great against higher level enemies or enemies that are resisting debuffs, but I'm a controller, I can hold things at ranged, and I'm soft capped range defense. So even if they're resisting the debuff, they still got to overcome the massive amount of range defense that I have. And this particular build does give me a power boost, and I can, hit power boost, drop lingering radiation, and get more. I can get a greater effect on certain debuffs for a certain amount of time or certain effects, and that can make a very big difference if you are with a team and you're trying to bring down a hardened target. Now, this is the second build of two that are out here, and we swap and look at the where's the other one? There you are. So let's get you up on the screen. And if we look at the other build, the Ice Rad Ice, here we can see that I'm likewise Soft cap to range outright. And we'll quickly do the uh, fix and save these as 2-hit debuff endurance. And save. And if we look at this, I'm much closer to smashing lethal. So even against enemies that are resistant to debuffs, they have a lot of debuff to work through. I'm still going to be fairly safe, and I'm still able to hold enemies at range. Both this build and the temporary invuln build are compelling. This one's more compelling than the temporary invulnerability because I have a greater potential of damage to lay down. I have both Frost Breath, and we'll lock Frost Breath off and look at it, which is giving me greater than single target damage over a cone. And Ice Storm is giving me a lot of damage over a large area. Theoretically, all controller attacks are supposed to operate on a function called containment. And containment basically means that you are supposed to get double damage on any enemy that is affected by a mes effect. Immobilize, hold, sleep, stun, anything that affects the player as a status or affects the enemy as a status effect is supposed to apply a bonus damage to any damage that a controller flings out. Presently, this does not seem to be working. My existing ice controllers do not seem to be getting a containment boost on Ice Storm or Frost Breath. I do not know if this is a bug or if this is working as intended. Uh, but expected damage is way down from where the indicated damage should be. Uh, Thus, as a player, I have a compelling reason to not go down into Ice Storm and Frost Breath, especially if I'm running with a team. I can't add significant amount of damage over and above what my teammates can bring and what my debuffs can bring. So having going the Primal Mastery with the Invuln and Power Boost, I can still play from ranged. I can bring arguably stronger debuffs with Power Boost to the table. But if I'm playing with a smaller team or a team that's very low on damage, if I have the ice available, then I'll be able to bring a little bit more ice damage to the table. And that way, if I have dual builds, I can swap back and forth in between them, keep equivalent buffs, but be better able to assist a team depending on what we're running with. Running with a high damage speed team, the Primal Mastery may be a better choice. If I'm running with a team that's not so quick on the uptake, then maybe something else. Then maybe the ice build would be a better one. But having both available gives me more options on what I can do. Now, to bring this back to the Defender. The Defender is an awesome build, but I'm pretty sure that there is a power boost option that. Okay, give me a second, because this is just driving me bonkers. Okay. A little bit happy on that. All right. Now, so what I kind of intend to do is I want to make a dual build for the Defender that goes down the Primal Forces or Power Mastery set, takes temporary invulnerability, maybe not taking Energy Torrent, maybe taking X-Ray Eyes, and picks up Power Boost. And while it's not going to be as defensively enabled, it may give me a better option to haul along on various task forces. Now, since I already have an idea of what slotting I'm going to be putting in for the radiation emission side, that's really where we're going to start. So we're going to do nuclear. We're starting on, and we're going to take everything as quickly as we can. except for EM Pulse, which likewise we are going to put all the way down at the end. We may not actually be taking EM Pulse because on the controller, and we'll bring the controller back up for a second, you can see on the controller build that I did not take 3 of the attack powers. And so I'm going to have to come up with some powers to drop maybe to make the exact sliding work. So we'll see when we get down there. All right, let's get up my work window and we'll start by locking off what we know we're going to be taking. Radiant Aura, we're still going to be going Lumina. And I already know that some of the slotting is not going to be the same because the ATOs are different. All right, Radiation Infection. We go with the Achilles Heel, chance for resistance debuff, just to add a little bit more being a prat about it. 2-hit debuff endurance. 2-hit debuff endurance. Accelerate metabolism, we're going to take out the 5 slots. And we're going to go preemptive optimization. We were 3 slots. What were we over here? All right. We had all 3 recharges. In mod, well, not all, yeah. The only ones that really mattered. Not to be because we need in mod and recharge. We don't necessarily need accuracy and there we go. And that gives us both some maximum endurance. And then we took Blessing of the Zephyr, and that was endurance and knock proc. All right, Innervating Field. We just had 2 in here. And Innervating Field does not take any damage sets to lessen the endurance drain. We got 2. And there, Mutation does take these kind of sets. Now, this might be a good place since you can't use Mutation on yourself, and this is one of those dead powers. And while I'm thinking about it, we'll go ahead and since this is we've already got high recharges going on, we'll just go ahead and change all of these to that run proc since we're not using the run proc anywhere else, I think. And save. Save. And this is another thing where if you got multiple windows open up and you come across an obvious change, go ahead, make that change and make it across all the builds that where that change would be useful. Mutation doesn't do anything for the player. It only reses teammates who have been defeated. Now, if this is one of the later buff debuff sets. Did I? No, I did these all catalyzed. And I did them. All right, I'll keep that in mind that I actually did the controller catalyze so that it could scale up and down and be more useful across a wider range of task forces. That's another thing to keep in mind is where you are actually using the powers at. Now, Choking Cloud, I had the Willa controller on, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to have access to ATOs on the Defender with Choking Cloud. I do have access to holds. And this may be a good place where I'm not going to get Arctic Air. And I maybe get some mileage out of doing Superior in Tome in place of I'm losing some range defense here. But I am picking up that constant chance for Absorb that's hovering around me. So we'll tentatively keep Choking Cloud at 6 slots. And Fallout, I went with accurate 2-hit debuff, and I went with Cloud Senses because it, of course, has a ranged defense component. And we're going to go, since this is a level 30 max set, this is where we'll start to pick up and have our full scaling. So this is a good place to maybe do pluses. You can see on the controller, those were actually still catalyzed. So we'll go ahead and plan on just catalyzing them. Okay. And last was E-Impulse, which was just 2 slots. And we'll kind of keep that leveled out. Now we'll go all the way down here and look at Power Mastery, where we have Power Buildup, Temporary Invulnerability, and Conserve Power. We had Power Buildup was at 35. 35 is Screech, which we already expect to be skipping. So that's a safe place where we can go ahead and put our Power Buildup. Actually, yeah, we'll put it there. And then 38 was Fallout, but that's where we'll pick up Dreadful Whale. And 41 was Temporary Invulnerability. And now we have either Force of Nature, which is a resist temp, or we have Total Focus, or we have Conserve Power. For right now, we'll go ahead and take Conserve Power because this may be where we'll have our most amount of toggles going. And we'll probably need to be picking up some endurance recovery at this point. And now we're kind of between this last slot. Do we want to do Force of Nature, which gives us a little bit more survivability? But there is a crash, a pretty hard crash, or we can take a melee. For now, we're going to go ahead and think about the melee. We may plan on Blistering Cold, but or Hecatomb. So we'll go ahead and give that 6 slots. Temporary Invulnerability, we'll go ahead and take up to 5 slots, and we'll fill in. We had the Steadfast Defense. We'll go ahead and plus that by 5 since it's a level 30 IO, and that's when it'll kick in. And we'll do Resistance Endurance Recharge. And then we had the Gladiator proc. And then we had, looks like, Unbreakable Guard max HP. Now, because of the low HP values, that really doesn't add anything for the controller. I could probably actually take this slot from here, just dump that proc and find someplace else to put it. Maybe a little bit more in Radiation Infection, maybe another slot in Synapses Shock. Maybe do full add some fire defense. But that's why. So we'll keep that slot open just in case we need it later. And power buildup. This one, okay, power boost did not take any sets. Power buildup does effectively act as an aim. And we don't actually, okay, we do have amplify. So for right now, we'll just put a 2-hit buff recharge in here, and we won't do anything else with that for the moment. All right. Now let's start looking. We'll do our travel powers next. Now I took, what was it? Combat jumping, speed of sound. I took experimental injection, and that was it. Combat jumping, experimental injection, speed of sound, hasten, and maneuvers. All right. 10 is still unslotted, but we don't have any other attacks down here. We have Shriek slotted. For 10, we can be running Shockwave, or we can be running Howl. Probably want to go ahead and put Howl, and at 14 will be, we can run Shockwave. And that gives us some low level, and then we'll do Speed of Sound, and then Combat Jumping at 20. All right, 22. is where we're kind of in the mid-range. We'll add some more damage with Shout. We'll do Amplify. Then at 28, this is where we'll probably pick up Maneuvers. And we are taking Hasten very late on this build. Because we just kind of run out of... One of the things we may want to do is move Mutation late. But what else can we move down? Maybe we won't hasten early, but we want to have some damage attacks early as well. Right now, our best one probably to move will be Choking Cloud, because we'll need a little bit of defense, or at least we hope to have a little bit of defense or debuffs. Otherwise, we'll just be an aggro magnet using Choking Cloud so late. So we'll move Choking Cloud tentatively to 30. And we'll bring Shout down. And we'll bring Maneuvers down. And actually, no, we'll move Maneuvers down. We're probably going to be looking at picking up Scream to add a little bit more damage, because our other two powers are just minor damages. Cone Foe Sleep, that is a pretty skippable power. And we'll do Hasten, Speed at 22. So we'll have Hasten by Synapse's task force. And that gives us one power at 32, where we had Experimental Injection as a team. And there we go. We've kind of filled in tentatively our powers. So now we'll go ahead and kind of slot out the pool powers and see what we have to work with. Maneuvers is Defense Endurance Recharge. And Experimental Injection, we had 2 slots with the Preventative Medicine proc and the Preventative Medicine Heal. Let's double check that. Yep, Preventative Medicine Heal. Health and Stamina were 2. In Health, we had the Miracle proc, and we had the Panacea proc. In Stamina, we had the Chance for Heal Self, and we had just a straight Endurance at Pump 2. Conserve Power, doesn't take any IO set, so we just had a recharge in there. Combat Jumping is really late. Alright, so kind of, where did Maneuver... Okay, Maneuvers wound up here kind of late. Alright. We won't Combat Jumping within room of speed of sound. And we don't want to give up some of our damages down here. Okay. The only one we really can give up or move down is Mutation. And let's see, we kind of want as much damage as we can get as early as we can get it, but we already have, we've got Shriek at 1, Howl at 10, Shockwave at 14, Shout at 18, and we don't have any other damages until 38, which is already placed. Alright, so we've already got all of our damage powers, at least by Positron Task Force. So we're kind of sorted on that. We're then looking at pool powers. We could swap Combat Jumping and Howl and have a little bit of movement later, or we could move Speed of Sound with Howl. And that gives us our teleport around a little bit earlier. And we have Shockwave, Howl. We'll swap Howl and Shockwave for placement reasons. And okay, I think that fits us up. We'll do the Gaussian proc on Amplify. We'll do 2 recharges on Hasten. And Combat Jumping again. Kind of late to be taking it. I mean, we could just move it down a little bit, maybe trade places with lingering radiation. But if you're leveling up, you really want lingering radiation as soon as you get it. Okay. But to be fair, this really isn't a leveling up build now, is it? Speed of sound, we had the breath blessing of the Zephyr, and we had a range endurance, and we had a knock proc. And now that just leaves us with our attack powers and focus. All right. We had the controller ATOs, which gave us defense ranged, both of them. And if we look at our defender ATOs, one of them gives us range, the other one gives us fire cold. But Superior Vigilant Assault does give us 3 slots of recharge time. And our primary one, chance for minor PB AoE heal, we probably want that in Shriek. Because we're going to be using Shriek an awful lot, but we have a high damage attack, a cone, and a cone. We had one expedient reinforcement, which was a ranged over here. And we had a Winter's Bite. We'll tentatively count on Winter's Bite in Shout, because it is a single damage ranged attack. Hang on, our tank has run out of things to beat on. Let's find some more targets for her real quickly. There we go. And then back to the bill. So tentatively filling out Howl does not have a knockback component, Shockwave does. So we can pick up maybe the knockback from Energy Torrent. That was an overwhelming force, and put that in Shockwave. And then with Howl, we had a massive range defense on the pet. We'll probably fill in Howl with Artillery, which gives us our range defense. All right, now that leaves us with Total Focus, Dreadful Wail, and Shriek. Shriek we're probably doing all the way with a full all right. Total Focus, we can put in Melee. We can pick up some Fire Cold or Smashing Lethal. We could pick up some ranged with Mako's Bite. Do we have anything in here we need to be aware of? Nope, it's just a Disorient. Dreadful Wail, we have 3 slots to go. So we can only currently take Dreadful Wail to 4 slots. We did have this slot here, which was the HP boost. And we can tentatively pull that and put that on Dreadful Wail. We're still not sure if we're doing EM Pulse or if we may be changing EM Pulse out for something else. So real quick, let's go and actually see what our totals look like before we slot the other ATO set. We're actually doing pretty good because we are at 40% range defense. I haven't activated any incarnate powers, assuming everything is set to scaling. We'll have 40 defense by the time all ATO buffs or all IO buffs kick in, which would be around maneuvers is 28. So as soon as you got maneuvers, you would theoretically already be soft cap, or you would be within debuff soft cap of range. Okay, that's good to know. So we need to pick up 5 ranged. We don't have any ranged in Superior and Tome. Dreadful Whale. We don't have any ranged in any of these. Well, we do have ranged in Eradication. Where else can we pick up? We've got no slots left to work with. Total Focus, we could pick up some ranged, a very decent amount of ranged with Mako's Bite. So Mako's Bite is presently on the table. Anything else we can do? Let's look again. We have ranged in Baseless Gaze. That's a small amount of ranged. We actually have a decent amount of ranged in Lockdown. Now that is interesting, because Lockdown does give us 3 endurances. Our immediate plan then is to do Choking Cloud with Lockdown, because we can't take an ATO set. And what does our ATO set actually give us? Our ATO set gives us just Recharge and AoE, no range defense. Well, that's a little annoying. So we'll go ahead and start slotting in Lockdown. Auto range all slots. Yeah, if you get a situation like that where you have some gray slots, just do slots, enhancement slots, auto arrange all slots, and that may fix that problem. Because we did do some of the slotting backing up. Now, to be fair, we could get some range defense out of fully slotting a Gaussian proc, but the question is, where would we pick the Gaussian proc up? Well, we could pick it up potentially by taking slots from Total Focus. Now, if we took slots from, if we just dropped Total Focus, we may be able to pick up something like Adrenal Booster or Corrosive Vial. And let's check real quickly here. Amplify has a duration of 10 seconds and presently has a recharge of 68 seconds. Let's hit, see what we look like with Accelerate Metabolism and Hasten turned on. We're down to 38 seconds. Power Buildup has a duration of 12 seconds and a recharge of 90 seconds. Now, if we could get Power Buildup and Amplify a little closer together, that would be interesting. So our immediate plan right now is to take these slots. Come on, give me info. Take these slots from where we had Total Focus slotted, and we'll go Power Buildup. And we'll change Amplify to 2-hit buff recharge. And now we'll come over to Power Buildup and fill it in with the full Gaussian set. Now, before we slot Dreadful Whale, we'll come back here and look at where we are. Whoa. We are now well over range defense. We've got a lot more range defense than we had before. Now, part of that range defense is actually because Power Buildup is turned on. This is one thing you have to check, because this actually became, and I don't want to say it's an issue, but when I was working on the Titan melee build, the electric Titan, I hadn't actually looked at the build that another player had made. I just made my own build, and then they asked specific questions about it. And so I loaded up their build and looked at it, and all of their calculations have been made with one power turned on that, well, didn't have any accuracy boosts, and they weren't running Kismet 2-hit. thus the chances of landing this particular power required to keep the defenses up were statistically very low. And I then had to explain to them that you have to watch the powers as you're turning them on, because if you put in a power that changes your stats and it's not one that you're going to have all the time, you get a different opinion of where your stats are actually going to be. Now, with power build up on, you can already see that it had a dramatic effect on the survivability factors. And now we have crossed over into ranged. Now, uh, we're about to do something that's really kind of tacky here, because I'm going to come over and we're going to potentially not be taking EM Pulse. Uh, we are potentially going to be taking Dreadful Whale, and we're potentially going to be still taking Shout. Now we're going to take the Winter's Bite off of Shout. And I know that Thunderstrike on a single target, okay, we're going to need one more slot for a Thunderstrike. And where are we going to get this slot from? We really, only real good candidate is Innervating Field. Everything else is so tightly. We potentially could take it off of Shockwave, since we are picking up knockback protection, knockback protection, knockback protection. We don't necessarily need that 6th slot for the um, and we'll change endurance recharge to accuracy damage to bring our damage back up, because our recharge is already going to be a little on the silly side. All right, that brings us a slot here. And now what I'm going to do is we're going to do 3 slots of Thunderstrike. And we'll do the 3 triples at the end. And then over here, I'm going to start working backwards with the Eradication proc. And then Eradication accuracy recharge. And an Eradication damage. We're going to start over at Shout. We're going to go to our ATOs. We're going to pick up the PBOE Absorb. And we're also going to pick up the Quad. And then over on the Nuke, we're going to pick up, we've already done the proc and the quad, so we're going to do accuracy, damage, endurance. We're going to do damage recharge time, and we're going to do accuracy damage. We check our values. We are maxed on damage output. We may be able to swap. Let's see what happens if we change to damage, endurance, recharge time. All right, we are still hard capped on damage output, red capped, and we have a recharge time of into green ED cap, and we are down to 44.43 seconds recharge. And let's come over to Shout. And here we didn't take the accuracy damage, so we'll take accuracy damage. Whoops. And now we check here. We have capped accuracy, capped damage. Our recharge time is looking really good. Over here, looking, can we do anything else with that recharge? Maybe accuracy damage recharge? What's that going to look like? Or damage recharge. All right, we're now red capped on damage and red capped on recharge time. And we are now rocking 41 seconds. We'll do window, set some bonuses. We have no bonuses that are capped. All right, we've got no more slots to work with, so we're down to single slot powers for our final 2. We still got EM Pulse hanging out down here. All right. And let's go back through. And are we really missing anything? I don't think so. So our totals are, we are still soft capped range defense. We haven't slotted any incarnate powers yet. If we look at our recharge is at 151.25. All right, what does that actually buy us in terms of the powers themselves? Let's go look at Hasten. Hasten, woof, duration 120 seconds, recharge 129. Uh, Not that great. Accelerate metabolism, duration 120 seconds, recharge 125. That's not too particularly great either. And we've already maxed recharge kind of on those. It's either, well, accuracy recharge doesn't buy us anything but recharge. Hasten is already capped there. All right, what else can we do? Well, we talked earlier about maybe corrosive vial and swapping EM pulse. EM pulse has a crash with it. What does adrenal booster give us? Adrenal boost gives us self plus 2 hit recharge, damage plus special. Has no crash. Force of nature gives us massive amounts of resistance, but a hard crash. Uh, we're not going to have slots to make total focus have anything. Right now, then, Adrenal Booster is looking really good, maybe for a final slot. We can do a 2-hit buff recharge. And okay, for that slot, what can we put in there? What's going to be useful with just a single slot? Assault, maybe? Or, maybe we can just be nasty and have yet another debuff to throw on enemies. We've got a Corrosive Vial. I mean, that could be fun, but we don't really have any slots to put in it. We may be able to take some slots from Choking Cloud. Maybe take Choking Cloud to a uh, 1, 2, 3. I see endurance, recharge, endurance. That's going to make a Choking Cloud very heavy on endurance, and we're going to lose about half our ranged buff. But 2 slots, we could do an artillery and maybe pick up. That might be enough to offset the loss in uh, the loss there with. So let's kind of think about that for a second. What does that look like? We're actually going to go ahead and save this, and this is Defender Radiation Emission Sonic Attack, and we'll do R1 Alpha because right now this is kind of looking pretty good, and we'll go ahead and take 2 slots from Choking Cloud. We'll swap Choking Cloud to, we'll do a chance for Recharge Slow. We'll need our Accuracy Endurance Recharge Hold. We'll need Endurance Recharge Hold. Do we have any other endurances to choose from? Nope, just Accuracy Recharge, Recharge Hold. Right now, Accuracy Hold, probably the best option of what we got. Alright, our Endurance consumption, let's lock it off. Our endurance cost is 0.59 endurance per second. That is a lot. However, we are rocking. We do have conserve power and we do have accelerate metabolism. And now we'll do slots and enhancements. We'll do slots, auto arrange all slots. And now we have 3 slots to put in. And we'll do artillery because it's got at ranged very close to the end. And now we'll check our values. We're actually doing pretty good on recharge time, not so great on anything else, but we are potentially planning to use this as just another debuff to launch into an enemy. And it does give us some. So, all right, that's that. Let's check our totals. We are actually still on ranged soft cap. And we've got everything else currently going. Let's flick on temporary invulnerability. And we're actually doing pretty good on smashing lethal resistance. And we're actually doing really good on energy negative. All right. We've got a potential build. Is there any way we can change this? Well, we took Fallout here, Cloud Senses, for the defense ranged, and Choking Cloud just that. Okay, it gave us a little bit more recharge. What does our recharge actually look like now? Hasten is now, this is 125, and Accelerate Metabolism is 122. Sets and bonuses, we're still not capped. Uh, if we went back to lockdown on Choking Cloud, we get more endurance recovery. Possibly swap our bring Fallout down and just take the recharge time on Cloud Census and not go for the recharge or not go for the ranged boost. Because no, I don't know. Lockdown's not going to be able to make up that. Lockdown's 3.75. This is 3.75, and we'd lose 1.25. So no, if we went that way, we would be knocked out of range soft cap defense. Uh, any other optimizations we could potentially make? Okay, what did our recharge and power buildup look like? We're now down to 70 seconds. Amplify is at 30 seconds. Okay. Now let's think about, we're not quite at perma hasten. We're actually quite a ways off from perma hasten, and we're not quite at perma accelerate metabolism. So let's think about our top end. And the go-to for almost every build is always going to be Agility Radial Paragon. Now, in this case, we may be able to get away with going with Spiritual for the recharge boost. Spiritual Core Paragon would give us recharge rate, stun duration, and healing, and we do have a couple of stuns in here. Do we still have some stuns? Dreadful Whale, yeah. Dreadful Whale, Foe Disorient. So a Spiritual Core would actually bring something more to... but let's see what the numbers look like first with Agility. Let's go check. Hasten, we're now down to 119. And we're now down to 112 on Accelerate Metabolism. So we're now perma on both. What's power buildup look like now? 64 seconds. Amplify, 27 seconds. And there we go. We've got a potentially more devastatingly debuff bringing build. Not quite as defensive, not quite as all around. Let's check our other totals. What do we look like here? We're still soft cap to range, since almost all of our range soft cap is coming through IOs and not necessarily defense powers. Whether or not agility is turned on, we're still at soft cap. Now we can think about, since we're already there, what would this look like with Spiritual Core Paragon? Well, Spiritual Core Paragon pulls Hasten, lock it off. Pulls Hasten down to 116, pulls Accelerate Metabolism down to 109, Power Buildup falls to 63, and Amplify falls to 20, what is that, 25, 26, or about 27. Not that much, but enough. And Conserve Power, what's that at? It's got a duration of 90 seconds and a recharge time of 168.2. Not too bad. And we've also got a self plus 2 hit plus recharge plus damage and adrenal booster. And this applies a boost to our secondary effects. And our secondary effects, multiple varies. Still could be very useful. We've got a recharge time of 170, what is that, 178 for 60 seconds. So we do kind of have an kitty litter power if we need to bring something a little extra for just a few minutes. And I think that is a compelling build. Okay. So that's designing a dual build that meets a specific set of criteria, and why you'd want to Even if you have a good build, why do you want to think about a second build? And I think that may be it for now. We'll go ahead and save this as R1 Bravo, since this is potentially a finished build, and it's been an update over the alpha. I think we've got everything that we need to check. One thing we didn't actually show is our recovery is 21.67. Let's go ahead and turn on all of our toggles. So speed of sound on. Let's turn amplify off for the moment. And we're currently running 217.6% recovery for 4.1 seconds, 4.1 endurance per second recovery with 2.02 drain. If we had conserved power, we fall to 1.02 second in drain. And this is with all toggles up. And we're still cranking that large amount. Let's go ahead and turn on accolades, which will be Freedom Phalanx Reserve, Portal Jockey, Task Force Commander, and Atlas Medallion. And our recovery has gone to 4.46 endurance per second. We're now recovering, effectively speaking, 4 times more endurance than we are draining through toggles. And that could make all the difference for survivability. And there we go. Uh, since I don't actually have that character loaded, we'll do walking through and we are just crossed the 51-minute time. This also hopefully been a nice tutorial on converting a build from one archetype to another archetype if they can use slotting that is close enough that you can match the power sets and bonuses. Been